Hey everyone, it's Brian, your horsefly in the boardroom, with another episode where we look at human behaviors in the workplace and try to separate the truth from the hype. If you're new to my channel, I post a new one of these every Tuesday and every Thursday. So make sure that you click on the subscribe and notification button so you don't miss an episode. And today we are going to be looking at servant leadership. I don't know about you, but I hear about servant leadership all the time, almost sprinkled over the top like it's a magic solution to everything that happens in the workplace. And the question is whether or not that works or doesn't work. And I think before we get into the question of whether it works or not, we should define what exactly makes servant leadership. And basically, they narrow it down to 10 different traits of a leader. So trait number 1 is empathy. So a servant leader is somebody who senses and understands other people's feelings and perspectives. Number 2, they are good listeners. They actively hear what followers say and sometimes what they don't say. Stewardship, so they treat the organization and its people as a trust to protect and to nurture. Number 4 is a commitment to the growth of others, so fostering personal and professional development. Number 5, this one gets a little bit tricky sometimes, but it's ethical behavior and moral integrity. So acting with honesty, fairness, and responsibility. Next up is humility, placing the needs of the group above their personal ego. And then comes persuasion instead of authority. So when people get into leadership roles, a lot of times they like to use that title as a club to beat people into submission, and a servant leader does not do that. They influence through reason and relationship rather than using that positional power. And then you have number 8, community building, so creating a sense of belonging and a shared purpose among the team. Number 9 is accountability, holding self and others responsible for actions and outcomes. And this can be quite a tricky one for the servant leader because I've seen before where people want to avoid the accountability piece. But your high performers notice if you're not holding people accountable, and you lose a lot of trust in that situation. So accountability is a big one. And then number 10 is visionary foresight. So being able to articulate a clear, inclusive future for actions, looking into the future and addressing the present needs. So those are the 10 common traits. They do vary a little bit depending upon who you're reading and who you're looking at. So the question is, servant leadership, does it work? Is there research behind it? And the answer is that yes, there is a lot of research behind it. And they find overwhelmingly that servant leadership does have positive outcomes. In particular, it influences things like employees' attitudes, so their job satisfaction, their engagement, their overall well-being. Of course, as you might expect, trust and relational quality improves. An interesting one is that organizational citizenship behavior. That's a fancy way of saying that people are actually engaged in what the organization is doing and what they hope to accomplish in the future, and they feel bought into that, like they want to participate. Performance metrics improve, so individual task performance, team performance, innovation is better with servant leadership. And then lastly, some of the well-being indicators that we look at for employees, things like, do they feel empowered? Interestingly enough, one of the things that improves with servant leadership is sleep quality. So people actually sleep better when they feel like they are in an environment where their leadership cares about them and is looking out for their best interest. So at the end of the day, yes, servant leadership is well researched. The bulk of the empirical findings point to positive outcomes for employee attitudes, trust, what we call discretionary behaviors, and performance. And the literature also highlights the importance of contextual factors. So contextual factors are kind of what I referred to earlier, where I said some people treat it like, the magic dust that they can sprinkle over it. Your particular culture may not be well suited to implement servant leadership without other things happening first. So now that we've established that servant leadership, what it is, and the fact that it does in fact have positive outcomes, the question is, who's shaping that today? Who are some of the key thought leaders around servant leadership? And there are a number of people both in the United States and abroad that are involved in it. So for example, Dirk van, and I'm going to pronounce this terribly, Dierendonck. He is a professor of management and leadership at Utrecht University, and he leads probably one of the largest empirical programs on servant leadership and has developed measurement scales and publishes meta-analysis around it. So he's a good one to follow. James Hunter, who's the founder of the Hunter Institute. He's also the author of the book, The Servant Leader. So he's been around for a really long time and involved. And there are different organizations like the Servant Leadership Institute, which is a nonprofit research hub, the Network of Leadership Scholars, which is an interdisciplinary community, and they host webinars and calls for papers, and they have conferences, etc. So the bottom line here is that servant leadership is not only proven to work, but that it's an ongoing thing, that we still have researchers, both practical in the field as well as university researchers looking after it. So if you were to ask me, should I be interested in learning more about servant leadership and applying it to my style, my answer would be yes. And if you stick around for our next episode, we'll talk about those times where maybe servant leadership is not the best implementation. But we'll talk about that on Thursday, so I hope you join me then. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk later.